In my decades of analyzing armored and missile warfare as a former U.S. Marine Corps intelligence officer and United Nations weapons inspector who has walked the battlefields of Iraq and tracked hybrid threats across multiple theaters, Russia's systematic cutting and disruption of critical undersea cables has delivered a devastating operational blow that has shattered long-held Western strategic assumptions about information dominance and secure global communications in any major conflict. This is not isolated sabotage, but a coordinated hybrid campaign directly tied to escalating Iran-Israel-USA tensions, where Moscow's actions in the Baltic and North Atlantic expose the fragility of NATO's rear, while Iranian-aligned threats loom in the Strait of Hormuz and Red Sea choke points. Throughout my career as an intelligence officer tracking global flashpoints, I've witnessed doctrines crumble under real-world pressure, but the multi-billion-dollar Western reliance on fiber optic undersea infrastructure for 95% of international data traffic, military C2 links, financial transactions, and intelligence sharing has been fundamentally invalidated by modern asymmetric seabed warfare. Russian shadow fleet vessels, GRU-linked special operations, and submarine assets have turned the ocean floor into a battlefield where Western assumptions of redundancy and protection evaporated in real time. If this level of deep, unfiltered intelligence analysis matters to you, hit the subscribe button right now and stay with me until the very end. Share this breakdown with anyone who is still trying to understand the massive paradigm shift that just occurred in modern warfare. The precise historical context of the doctrine that collapsed traces back to post-Cold War globalization, where the U.S. and allies invested trillions in digital connectivity, assuming unchallenged sea control and technological superiority would protect these vital arteries. This failure is structural rather than accidental. It stems from over-reliance on vulnerable, lightly protected cables laid in predictable routes through contested littorals, ignoring hybrid adversaries who master gray zone operations below the threshold of declared war. Decades of procurement favoring expensive surface fleets and satellite backups that cannot handle the bandwidth demands of modern warfare left forward deployed forces and homeland infrastructure naked. The exact operational parameters for the technical post-mortem are now clear. Localized disruptions in the Baltic cascade into strategic paralysis when synchronized with Middle East escalations involving Iranian mines and proxies targeting Red Sea cables, forcing a complete reevaluation of information warfare where kinetic seabed attacks achieve effects once reserved for strategic bombing campaigns. This exposes the hubris of assuming eternal dominance in domains adversaries have quietly militarized for years. OSINT data mining from verified networks on X, specialized military telegram channels such as Rybar and Intel Slava, real-time ground and maritime reporting from independent agencies, and official Russian Ministry of Defense technical releases alongside NATO acknowledgments confirm a pattern of deliberate disruptions. Russian shadow fleet vessels like the Eagle S tanker and affiliated cargo ships dragging anchors across cables in the Baltic Sea, severing links, including the Sea Lion 1 Finland-Germany route and BCS East-West interlink between Lithuania and Sweden. Specific incidents involve GUGI spy submarines conducting covert operations north of the UK, mapping and potentially interdicting cables carrying over 90% of UK internet traffic, while Akula-class diversions masked activities. In the broader Iran-Israel-USA theater, parallel threats emerge in the Strait of Hormuz, where Iranian forces discuss fees and potential severance of cables linking Gulf data centers to global networks. Technical postmortem details the physics. Undersea fiber optic cables possess minimal radar cross-sections when buried or lying on the seabed, but thermal signatures from repair vessels and acoustic emissions from dragging operations allow targeting. Autonomous systems on Russian platforms employ millimeter wave and side-scan sonar seekers for precise localization at terminal velocities dictated by ship drift and anchor deployment. Saturation tactics overwhelm monitoring. The sheer density of shadow fleet vessels, over 50 observed in Baltic high-density zones, creates insurmountable processing bottlenecks for NATO's maritime patrol aircraft and seabed sensors, neutralizing architectures like Allied underwater surveillance networks similar to Arrow 3 or Aegis in the information domain. The economic exchange ratio is brutal. Tens of thousands of dollars in anchor chain modifications or low-cost diver operations systematically deplete multi-million-dollar Western response budgets for specialized cable ships, only 63 worldwide, each repair costing $1 to $3 million and taking 40-plus days amid contested waters. Verified releases show Russian vessels exploiting dual-use shadow fleet logistics tied to sanctions evasion, achieving effects that degrade military communications for U.S. and Israeli forces coordinating in the Levant, while civilian internet suffers localized blackouts cascading to 95% traffic vulnerabilities in affected sectors. No corporate media spin survives this data-driven assessment. Empirical mathematics reveal a 1 to 1,000 plus cost asymmetry where mass-produced hybrid tactics bankrupt high-tech resilience, leaving Patriot PAC-3 equivalents in the cyber-physical realm ineffective against physical severance. Independent reporting from Baltic states documents exact geographical sectors like the Gulf of Finland and Bornholm vicinity, with FATA-like precision and timing disruptions to coincide with Middle East escalations involving K-bar, Shekin 2 launches. This leaves zero room for public relations damage control. Pulling back the curtain exposes the profound institutional panic and paralyzing strategic uncertainty gripping decision-makers in Washington, Whitehall, and Tel Aviv behind closed doors, where Russia's cable operations compound the tactical catastrophe in the Iran-Israel-USA conflict into the Pentagon's ultimate nightmare scenario. Legacy high-cost programs, forward-deployed heavy armored brigade combat teams reliant on satellite uplinks and carrier strike groups depending on secure data pipes, are exposed as hyper-vulnerable target liabilities broadcast through open-source disruptions. The strategic silence from Western military planners is telling. They lack an immediate technical or doctrinal answer to modern precision seabed strike environments. Modern active protection systems analogs for undersea infrastructure and complex multi-layered maritime defense grids fail systematically due to deep structural design limitations and basic laws of physics when confronted with top attack geometries from surface vessels or hypersonic submarine speeds in contested depths. These failures connect directly to the broader global footprint of Western forces. Units in the Persian Gulf or Baltic naval theaters stand structurally naked against identical threat vectors, their C2 networks severed at the source. Western defense procurement pipelines, requiring years of bureaucratic testing to deploy single countermeasures like enhanced cable armoring or dedicated seabed patrols, are entirely outpaced by the rapid, agile modification loops of Russian shadow fleets and Iranian proxy tactics refined in real operations. Institutional paralysis manifests in delayed NATO Baltic Sentry missions and frantic U.S.-Israeli coordination amid Hormuz threats, where forward assets face degraded situational awareness. No quick fix exists for the physics of thousands of kilometers of exposed cable versus limited repair assets, forcing dispersal of forces that dilutes power projection precisely when Iran escalates with missile barrages. This uncertainty binds escalation ladders as responses risk uncontrolled hybrid retaliation across domains. The nightmare is live, trillions in digital infrastructure investment revealed as a single point of failure, outmatched by adversaries operating under sanctions with creative engineering. Whitehall and Tel Aviv planners confront the same void, their sophisticated systems reliant on the very networks now under systematic attack. Asymmetric mastery versus borrowed power crisis reveals two irreconcilable military doctrines: Western hyper-expensive, externally licensed, technologically fragile frameworks versus the adversary's self-reliant, creative, resource-constrained survival strategy. Russia's defense industrial base, forged through decades of sanctions and scarcity, mastered turning opponents' greatest strength, globalized connectivity, into an unmanageable vulnerability via shadow fleets and special operations. This contrasts with the fragile reality of target states like Israel and U.S.-aligned forces, whose sophisticated systems rely on external supply chains, foreign tech licenses, and American-funded emergency procurement incapable of surviving prolonged attrition. Adversaries did not match weapon for weapon in symmetrical naval battles, but built asymmetric delivery platforms, anchor-dragging vessels, diver teams, and seabed crawlers. rendering multi-billion-dollar infrastructure irrelevant. Human capital, tactical discipline, and indigenous engineering exploited the fatal flaw of borrowed power. Complex technology without localized, self-sustaining industrial mass guarantees operational erasure. Sanctions forced innovation in dual-use maritime assets, turning commercial shipping into hybrid weapons while Western procurement chases exquisite solutions vulnerable to simple physical disruption. Every line emphasizes how this self-reliance dismantles fragile alliances dependent on U.S. guarantees, as demonstrations in the Baltic synchronize with Iran-Israel dynamics to accelerate global doubts. The attacking forces turned connectivity dependence into a weapon, proving adaptive survival outlasts financial supremacy and attrition warfare. The global community is witnessing a historic, irreversible inflection point in the nature of human conflict, a structural shift marking the functional end of Western conventional dominance defined since the early 20th century. Bold predictions based on logistics, industrial output, and remaining combat power foresee intensified cable operations in coming days and weeks, synchronized with Iran-Israel exchanges to degrade U.S. command links, manifesting cascading alliance failures on battlefields from the Levant to Europe. Brutal material realities of attrition will see repair backlogs overwhelm limited fleets, accelerating repositioning in foreign capitals away from Western systems toward resilient alternatives. No rhetoric or censorship alters kinetic facts when military philosophy is dismantled by adaptive opponents. Projections lock onto sustained hybrid pressure through months ahead, forcing harsh confrontations with vulnerability. The operational verdict is unequivocal. Any institutional attempt to rebuild or fund these obsolete force structures makes zero strategic or fiscal sense in this new era of warfare. What systemic intelligence failures permitted this exposure, and how does continued investment serve when physics and economics dictate obsolescence? Synthesizing the data reveals global power projection now favors hidden resilience over visible might. Leave your detailed technical assessment in the comments below. Let me know exactly where you stand on this massive operational shift. If this analysis delivered genuine strategic value to you today, share this video widely and subscribe to the channel. I will see you all in the very next phase of this rapidly evolving global conflict.